Welcome to episode 172 of Silver Lining for Learning. This is Chris Deedy from Harvard University. With me are Yang Zhao, a co-host from the University of Kansas and the University of Melbourne, and Kurt Blanc, co-host from Indiana University. And we're very excited today to have three people from the leadership team of an initiative called the Digital School. So I was approached 3 years ago, I think it was, to be part of the initial advisory board for the Digital School, which was just getting started. And I was happy to accept because this is an initiative that is aiming at helping a lot of students who are marginalized in different ways, who might be refugees or who might be very rural, or for whatever reason are underserved by the standard educational system in their country. And over the past 3 years, and I'm still an advisor, I've been amazed by the speed with which the Digital School has grown. And of course, in Silver Lining for Learning, we're always interested in things that can go to scale. So that's some of my excitement about this. And I'll ask Waleed, who is the head of the Digital School Initiative, to tell us about himself and a little bit about what he wants to share today.
Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here with you. My name is Waleed Al-Ali. I work for the Mohammed bin Rashid Global Initiatives, which is the umbrella initiatives launched by His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, Vice President and Prime Minister of UAE, ruler of Dubai. And among several initiatives, education is a key pillar. And I was honored to lead some of these initiatives that are around education. And Digital School is the latest initiative so far. I have background in technology, but then I kind of shifted to EdTech, and I did my PhD in innovation and education and how to diffuse innovations at the national systems. And the journey starting by implementing what we called back then the Smart Learning Program for the UAE across all the public schools in UAE. And then it expanded from the UAE experience to how we can expand the experience that we have and enhance access to education beyond UAE, with several initiatives, starting with an initiative called Madrasa, which means Arabic, in Arabic means a school. And we provided more than 6,000 educational content for free in Arabic to Arabic learners around the world. So far, maybe more than 120 million lessons have been delivered there. And actually, the Arabic content online, although Arabic is one of the most famous content, and there are many Arabic speakers around the world. However, the Arabic content online only consumes, in some of statistics, 0.3%, and the most optimistic one will say 1%. So imagine how much of that is educational or quality educational content. So this was the start. And then when COVID came, and I think all of us share this turning point on COVID, and the question was, if the whole world managed to move somehow to some sort of online learning, remote learning, even through TV, satellite, WhatsApp, in a matter of weeks, and continued education. We know it's not the perfect setup or the same level of attainment, but education continued. Then the analogy was, okay, why we can't use all of this development, all of this technology, all of this shift in minds and thinking to utilize that digital education shift and to provide education to those who need it most around the world. And this is where the Digital School Initiative started. I think it was a difficult time. It was, I think, October, November 2020, at the peak of COVID, where governments were questioning, shall we move online? Shall we stay? Shall we wait? And His Highness said, let's start. We will announce it in a few weeks. And it was like very difficult timing, but we started to build a team, to consult with experts like Chris, and started to put what constitutes a digital education what is the educational requirements, what is the technological aspects, how we drive change, where we can operate. So many questions that we were asking, and many of them we didn't know the answer to unless we started to pilot. So this is the digital school, and I hope today we will delve into that, and we will share with you what we have done. The aim of the digital school is to reach 1 million students by 2026. It's a very bold target to 1 million, 4 million enrolled students around the world. It's not limited to be Arabic, so it's international. Right now, we offer content in 4 languages: Arabic, English, French, and Spanish. And we know 1 million is not solving the problem. We know it's, according to UNESCO, maybe before COVID, it was 270 million, I think, who don't have access to quality education. And I think post-COVID, that number increased dramatically, but we hope it will be like a snowball effect. So if it works with 10,000, if it works with 100,000, if it works with 1 million, hopefully it can work to more and more. And this is kind of our effort to show a model that can work. It's not perfect, but we learned a lot through this almost 30-month, 3 years journey so far. Thank you.
Lesley?
Yes, thank you. It's very nice to be here with the Harvard team and my colleagues from the digital school, and very nice of Dr. Waleed to mention the snowball effect. Not my personal introduction as planned, but it's a good connection. I'm Dr. Lesley Snowball. I am the education director with the digital school. I've been an educator for many, many years, more than 3 decades, in many different roles in supporting schools with curriculum reform and pedagogical reform, often working in places where traditional teachers and traditional teaching methods were very embedded, and helping them move to more modernized, personalized teaching, self-directed learning for students, etc. Always a teacher at heart. I worked with special educational needs students, and so personalized learning has always been very close to my heart. What's exciting with digital school is I was in the UAE during COVID, and I was part of the government education system, not with the digital school at that point, but I saw how beneficial it was to the students. And I shared the vision of digital school once that was announced, seeing real potential for reaching students who were otherwise lacked access to education for all sorts of reasons. Our students are very diverse. Our countries and communities and contexts are very diverse, but we really truly believe that, by applying different models of digital education, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go into the podcast, because there's not only one model, but all with that digital base, we can scale, we can reach students who otherwise didn't have access or who had disrupted access. And for me, it's been an opportunity to synthesize all the things I've been passionate about in education. And one interesting comment or recollection memory really in preparing for this podcast is how long I have been trying to embed technology in my own classroom. And for those of you old enough to remember, in 1981, a great guy called Clive Sinclair, who was British, introduced a little tiny device called the ZX81. And I was currently teaching in a Catholic school, and I was the only person who was not a Catholic nun. I'd been hired as a lay person. And somebody offered us a ZX81 to trial in our classrooms. And the nuns were not, they didn't jump up and down and leap to the front to be the volunteer. So I was sort of pushed forward by them pulling back. And I loved that. It was challenging. It took 20 minutes to load one very basic program. And then if it failed at the end, we used little mini cassettes. If it failed, you had to start again. But it inspired my kids. These were children who didn't really want to learn. They didn't understand what they would get out of learning. But having that technology, even if it was just once or twice a week for them to try, it really inspired them. And reflecting, I realized since then, I've always had some kind of digital device in my classroom. And that has added even just a little bit. I wouldn't say by any means I'm a technical wizard, but I've been able to see the potential as a teaching tool, and how it could motivate teachers and students. And that's one of the really exciting things for me about being with Digital School. And obviously now we're applying it to children who are most in need. And if we can even bring a fraction of those children back into the education systems and give them some hope, build their resilience, build their ability to see that there is potential, then we'll have done a great job.
Fuzan.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be with you here today in the Silver Line Learning for Education. My name is Dr. Fuzan AlKhalidi. I am the advisor of education, strategy, and organization support at the Digital School. I'm it's almost a year that I have joined the Digital School, but prior to that, I've spent quite some time at the UAE Prime Minister's office as an advisor of education and healthcare strategy. So mainly was looking after strategy and policy at the center of the UAE government. I'm so pleased, actually, I was involved with the Digital School from its conception. I was part of the strategy committee when we launched, or when His Highness launched this great initiative. With the colleagues here, with Dr. Waleed, we managed to develop, the strategy of the Digital School. In particular, the main component of the strategy, like, the vision and the mission, and the strategic objectives of the Digital School. So now I oversee different functions at the Digital School. And what really inspired me about the Digital School is its vision, is to provide or to drive, the digital education frontiers, to provide education to underserved communities for those children who are fortunate to have access to education. And that was, the vision of His Highness. And, the target that he put for us was very ambitious. And we're working so hard to achieve this target, which is 1 million students by 2026. The Digital School is unique as an initiative, which are providing a contextualized digital learning for each country that we operate in. We collaborate with the Ministry of Education on that particular country. We adopt their national curriculum to provide high quality, innovative learning opportunities for these kids. I'm so happy to be with you, Chris, and we're happy to answer, your questions. Thank you.
So, Kurt, I think you have a question.
I just want to make a comment first to Lesley. My auntie is a Catholic nun in her 80s. My son told me this week that she's more savvy with technology than I am. She visited him and showed him all. She's been all front edge of using technologies, and I'm sure you are as well. I think my first PC was 83, so a couple of years after you. I have a two-part question for all of you, and that's one I like to know what, compared to your mission statement, compared to what you were originally visioning, what has been a success beyond those dreams? What has been more successful than you thought? would happen. It could be anything about scale, about outreach, about the curriculum, about assessment. What is about personalization that you already mentioned? And why is that? And on the other flip coin of that, what are you still searching for in terms of solutions? What in terms of your original mission? What have you not accomplished yet, but hope to accomplish in the near future? And so both sides, what has been, beyond your wildest dreams, and when are you still yet to meet, and why? Any of the three of you?
I'd love to start. For me, it's obviously our focus within the vision of the students. They are our, central focus. But I think one of the big successes for us has been our work with the educators. And we purposely use the word educators rather than teachers, because some of our educators are not qualified teachers technically. They are community members facilitating the learning for the students, and they actually do an excellent job. They know those children well, they know their community well and the content well, but they've never had the benefit of official formal teacher training. But for us, I think, it was always built into the vision that we would need to train educators. We need content, which, as Dr. Fuzan explained, comes from primarily from the national curriculum. We're building enrichment content as well. We need educators, and then obviously we need the students. And with the educators, I think it's sometimes been a challenge. They don't always have the time or the motivation to go through quite technically challenging, educationally challenging courses. Some of our educators didn't even know what a smartphone meant. How was it smart? They'd never done anything other than, phone their moms, phone their daughters, phone their friends. So those technical skills that they've developed and the confidence they've developed have, for me, been a real, not necessarily an eye-opener, but a real delight. I pull reward from that in seeing them grow as educators. And one of the things it's done also is raise their status in their community, because they feel privileged to be part of the digital school. They feel privileged to be given the opportunity to take proper teacher training courses. And when we speak to them, we always say, we can share data on the digital school, we can share impact in that way, but the human stories, the impact on the educators, the teachers, the students themselves, are what really illustrate the success of the digital school to date. And particularly when I hear the educators talk, or when we zoom into their classrooms and we see the pride and the resilience, their confidence boost since before digital school, and the fact that they can overcome the technical challenges, that to me has been a huge revelation and a delight, as I said.
Wonderful. Dr. Waleed or Dr. Fuzan?
Maybe I can start. I mean, again, one of the success stories that we really are very proud of is basically, we saw the impact of the digital educations on those communities. Those kids were having no access to education. Now, with a digital school, providing them with the core subjects, with a digital education as a tool. So we don't, as a digital school, we don't provide devices. We provide educational system. We provide the national curriculum and we digitize it. We provide, we curate content, and we prepare lesson plans for those kids. And we also empower teachers by providing them training through our collaborations with Arizona State University. Those are very inspiring. Those are very impactful. And we saw this impact on students, on their families, in their communities, even on the country itself. And collectively, I think the digital school is impacting, the globe, is impacting SDGs, in particular SDG 4, SDG 10. So I think, what we have been doing with the vision of His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, I think we are changing the landscape of the digital education globally.
Well, I think taking from my colleagues what they said, when we're trying to put a vision for the digital school, and because we wanted to focus on marginalized or underserved communities, and we said, what is digital education or what is digital educator? We couldn't define that. I mean, when we consulted with many experts, like, what do you mean by digital educator? Someone else? Or what do you mean by digital education? Everything on internet or on TV? And I think we are getting close to the answer. This is also important because we've tried it. And so this is a main important outcome that we have so far. And in our vision statement, we said we want to drive the frontiers of digital education. We didn't say we want to reach 1 million students. So because we look at digital education for marginalized as kind of a new stream compared to the traditional schooling system that is there. And getting this more mature is something very I would say rewarding compared at the beginning phase. When we launched the initiative, actually it was not clear. The other area, I think, when we launched the initiative, we got many questions from organizations around the world. Some of them were kind of not sure and maybe mocking, digital education, it's a luxury, what are you talking about? You are from Dubai and you think the whole world is connected. And some of them were, international nonprofit organizations. Seeing now that the whole world started to adopt digital education at the United Nations, the Transforming Education Summit last year in New York, they announced 4 thematic action tracks to accelerate achieving SDG 4. And one of them was digital education. One of them was educators and how technology can help leverage and widen the scope of teachers training and student access to education. So this is also an important element that I'm recalling. Not yet, or things that to go. I think there is a long list, but a few things that came to my mind. I think one key challenge is infrastructure and connectivity. Everybody was asking, you are an initiative that give iPads, not tablets, not computers, and give connectivity. And we say, no, we don't commit to that. However, we try to facilitate it through partnerships, through partners, through some initiatives maybe we will talk about today, that like the Donate Your Own Device campaign, the recycling and circular economy of used devices. So infrastructure is a big challenge that we are trying to address. We are trying to put partnerships with the telecom operators to, I think like education is a right. We are trying to drive the frontiers of digital education by making connectivity as a right and calling in the international organization and the telecom regulatories to recognize this. I think this will make this real. Otherwise, all the efforts will not be sustainable. And this is the key thing of sustainability, how we can sustain such a program, connectivity, devices, and all of that. We did some innovations to address low power consumption, to address portable and mobile modular solutions. So infrastructure and connectivity and sustainability. I think last point is, the more we went into this program, we saw it is way more a change process than a technology and an educational program, because we were assuming that the students and the educators and the communities will not be so much interested to education, but we were surprised how much they are agile, how much they are, strong and interested into education, and we had to cope with them. At the same time, we had to take a difficult conversation with the education authorities across each country to recognize their efforts, recognize their educational I would say, achievements, because without it in the current educational for K-12, even if a student achieve a refugee student, for example, in Lebanon, he achieved all the learning outcomes, but because he don't have a student ID, his certificate cannot be stamped. This is kind of killing for us, because the student he'll come to us and he said, I studied, I achieved A in everything, but then they told me your certificate is worth nothing. And that's why we took a full path for accreditation, and maybe Dr. Lesley can tell you more about it. So these are some of the thoughts that came to my mind.
Yang, you have a question.
Yeah, well, thank you. This is apparent and very exciting initiative. And I'm just imagining the amount of work you have to do, especially when Dr. Waleed was talking about certification, credentialing. We know there are a lot of open learning resources, right? I mean, that's a lot of every platform has something, TikTok, YouTube, everything. But what apparently you are doing is different from that. So you both, I think, Dr. Fuzan, Waleed, and Lesley have mentioned a little bit of this about how you interact with local teachers, interact with local students, education authorities. Just for the interest of the audience, I would love it if you could explain how you really manage, like you were talking, manage innovations locally, right? And so if you go to Lebanon, you talk to the Minister of Education, they said, okay, I reached these schools, talk to the students, talk to teachers, then they join you. So how do you do that? Because also there's another issue about national authority, sovereignty, right? So you're from UAE, are you bringing your ideology into my country? So just, a very interesting, complex political, educational, cultural issues, so that would be fascinating. How do you get that, anyone can start. Dr. Waleed, go ahead. Yeah.
Maybe, it's a very difficult and fair question, I would say, because education is a national priority. It's a sensitive topic. And sometimes when you go to countries, say, I will teach those students, they will tell you, wait, take our curriculum or leave it, take it or leave it. And that's why we focus that we go from the formal channels. With every country that we are operating in, we have an agreement with the education authority there. Sometimes it takes almost a year to sign just simple non-binding high-level MOU. But I think this was key for us, because we wanted to align with the education authorities there. We wanted to give them comfort that we don't have any hidden agenda. We, as Digital School, are established as a non-profit organization, and our focus is to impact the learning and education, and not to go beyond what is there in the national curriculum. So this is one key thing. The other thing is, in terms of the selecting locations within a country, we've tried to play a hybrid role, but every country has its own situation, its own system and complexity. For example, if I say Egypt has totally different setup and challenge that we had to cope with, and we did the implementation through the World Food Program in Egypt. We had to take permissions from the Ministry of Education to adopt to some educational system that is new to us. It was community schools, and it was totally different. But everything is federal in Egypt, what I mean. If we went to Colombia, then the whole system was different. It's decentralized at municipality or city level, and we had to take permissions from the municipality before the Ministry of Education, or sometimes it was not important or critical to have Ministry of Education. So every country have its own, I would say, process to engage with, which is you need to respect. Then if you go to the curriculum, okay, in some countries we said we will offer, or we will bring some content that is high quality. I mentioned before, I have a platform called Madrasa, where we curated content for math, science, Arabic literacy, biology, and all the content for K-12. It's all there, Arabic, high quality. It's not mapped to a specific curriculum. It's based on knowledge map. But for example, in Mauritania, they said, no, you should use our curriculum and it's fully digitized. And we said, great, let's have a look. And unfortunately, it was a scan of the books. And they said, take it or leave it. And we said, okay. So we realized at that point that every country have its own starting point. And if they will start at this level, we took these PDFs and divided it into lesson plan. Dr. Lesley can tell us more about it. But at that time, that was sufficient for us to start there. And we knew by time when the teachers and the officials go through the training, they will know what is interactive content and digital content. And then they will say, well, we should develop our content more. A second point is we started to kickstart the operation and the implementation. We started to give devices in certain locations. We started to curate the digital lesson plans in every country through a contractor or a company or a third party. But then we moved, as we trained more educators in each location, we moved to a different model where the teachers and the educators in each country will be forming a team, and that team will be curating content based on their national curriculum. And that helped us a lot with this dialogue of, who is curating content and who is taking, quality assurance with that. Of course, we made sure in every step, whatever content we develop, that we clear it from the Ministry of Education, because we don't want to come later after 1 year that they say, you know what, this is not approved, you are violating X and Y, and especially we are operating in areas with high, I would say, challenges and complexities. So these are some areas that came to my mind in terms of working around these challenges. And I think every time as we move forward, more, I would say, development takes place. Sometimes I would say in country X, if you look at our content and curriculum and implementation, you will tell me this is very old school. And if you look at another country Y, you will tell me this is good, interactive. Why you are not doing the same in country X? I will tell you they are not ready. In some places, we start with teachers only and students don't have devices. And if an external eye will come, you say there is no digital happening. Only a teacher have a tablet or a computer and I have digital content, but students are not using our learning management system. And we know that. And we know that as whenever the teachers are ready, the platform or the infrastructure, then we move to the next step of onboarding the students in a slow-paced or structured way. This is because we don't want the teacher to lose his status. I hope I delivered the idea.
Well, that's very helpful, Waleed, Dr. Waleed. Thank you. I was just wondering, Lesley and Dr. Fuzan have anything to add?
Yes, I can. Yes, yeah. I can just add something here, which is again, just to add in what Dr. Waleed was just focusing, and I think involving, the authority and the Ministry of Education, whether it's the ministry or the local government, is very crucial from the beginning. So usually we sit with them, we identify collectively what is, the need on that particular locations or a community or schools, and we co-design or we co-develop, the scope of work where the digital school is going to help that particular location or country. So again, each country has its own context, has its own challenges, and we work closely with, with the government to identify the scope, and then we move into the next step by signing non-binding an MOU. And we usually, in some of our locations, we partner with a local implementation partner on the ground to help us on the implementations. Like for example, on Egypt, where Dr. Waleed has mentioned, we also partner with WFP, the World Food Program, to implement, the digital school on the community schools. So in a sense, it's a collaborative work. We adopted the national agenda, as I have stated before, We are not here to replace, the Ministry of Education. We don't impose our curriculum. We are just providing, the digital education system and the ecosystem and the learning management system and the tools to help those communities to transform into a digital education. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Lesley?
Yes, thank you. I would just extend a little bit what Dr. Waleed and Dr. Fuzan have already said. I think this is a real strength of the digital school in that we synthesize standardized approaches and templates with the personalization, localization, contextualization across different communities and countries. And I think this is going to be one of the key success factors in our scalability, because we have a model, and I want to come on also, this leads us very neatly into accreditation, which Dr. Waleed mentioned. We have a model that is very agile and flexible. It gives us a base. It addresses the concerns of each country and allows us, as Dr. Waleed said, to be very flexible and to be needs-based. But it doesn't restrict us. Sometimes frameworks and templates can be restrictive, but we've designed them to be to give us structure and to be a jump-off point for whatever the community or the country needs. One of our focal points is always local capacity building. So again, these frameworks that we put in place are adapted to meet the community's needs, to allow us to give the educators what they need. If they do not know even how to switch on a device, that's where we start. If they don't have devices, they may only, for example, have one whiteboard, smartboard in the classroom, then our model is adjustable enough, adaptable enough to take that into account, start where they need to start, and we're always moving them in the same direction. We want, we help to accelerate, we help to build those digital skills, that confidence, but from a start point that is appropriate for them and at a pace that is appropriate for them. So that local capacity building, I think I talked there about scalability, but the local capacity building also means this is sustainable. We want this impact to be there when we are not personally there. We want it to still have an impact on students for years and years to come. I talked about educators being one of my real feelings of success, that we've worked with these educators. And we're also very proud of the potential that gives, because, for example, if we've currently trained more than 1,600 digital educators, and we know that research says that a typical educator, on average, over a career, will impact 3,000 students. We can then amplify, those 1,600 multiplied by 3,000. That's a very, very big impact potentially from those educators, even if they don't stay directly connected to the digital school as they move through their careers as an educator. And that's very exciting for us. I would like to mention then accreditation. We have partnered, partnerships are very central to how digital school works. And in the early days, we partnered with NEASC, the New England Association for Schools and Colleges. There was a lot of discussion, research. We met with many organizations. There are many, many accreditation models and organizations out there. And we chose NEASC after a lot of meetings and deep analysis, really, of how they could help us best. And we work with NEASC. They don't just come in after a certain amount of time and look at us impersonally and say, okay, you're meeting the standards, tick, 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 or you're not meeting the standards. We've developed a partnership with them where we really work together. We have a unique model, and NIASC is working with us to, how do you accredit something that's unique? They've worked very closely with us to maintain their standards because they're a very well-established organization. They need to maintain that high quality, but they have also been very flexible in how they've looked at our model. And this links back to my first comment that this is a strength of digital school. NIASC is accrediting our model. They're not accrediting the precise work we do in Egypt, or the precise work we do in Colombia, which looks very different, or the precise work we do in Mauritania, which looks different again. They are accrediting us as a model that is adaptable, that is scalable, that is agile, that is sustainable in a number of different forms. And I think that, again, is a real strength of digital school. And we are well on the way through the accreditation journey. But of course, there's still a long way to go. And in fact, it never stops, because even when we reach full accreditation, which we anticipate this next spring, spring 2024, we know that it never stops, and there's still the self-reflection, the review, the continuous improvement. But the fact that we will be accredited as a high quality model that offers that personalization and contextualization, I think is central to our success to date and to our potential impact as we move forward over the coming years.
Well, thank you. That's very interesting, especially with the NIASC accreditation. And I know Chris and others have questions. Just a quick follow-up is that, so as you said, the NIASC accredits the digital school, but the digital school's delivery is in different countries. And when it happens, those countries, NIASC does not accredit those, right? So those you would have to seek different accreditation. You don't need to answer this. I just want to raise that question. Okay, thank you.
So I want to go to teachers and other educators, because as you say, it isn't just people with a teaching certificate. We know, all of us, that you can have a wonderful infrastructure, great technology, wonderful curriculum, super good tools, but at the end of the day, it's the teacher that makes the student's experience special and meaningful, particularly for the students that you're targeting, students who are from groups that are marginalized, students who may have very turbulent life situations, students who may be very isolated, so that there's an affective and a psychosocial dimension to what the teacher provides beyond just the cognitive dimension. And I know that you care about this very deeply, because you have established something that sort of complements the digital school and feeds into it, but also goes beyond it, and that is this partnership with Arizona State University. So I wonder if you could say something about that, and because that in itself is a model that has an impact both in the digital school and beyond the digital school.
If I might start, and I'll try to keep it brief and then allow Dr. Waleed and Dr. Fuzan to come in. But this is central to our education strategy. As you said, it's very close to our hearts. I've seen digital or online learning programs, online education programs, where the teachers don't know the students. They don't meet them. It's all it's all online. It's not face to face, and they're remote figures then. And you can still build a relationship, but as we talked about earlier, it's harder to build a relationship if there's not some face-to-face contact. So again, I think digital school has, we use different models in different countries. As Dr. Waleed mentioned, we try to really tailor it to the needs of and the skills and the level of development of the education system and the educators. But what's core to this is the educators who are working with our students know those students. They are their teachers, they're their facilitators, they're in the communities. And this is part of the focus on local capacity building. We're not bringing in remote teachers. We're not ruling that out as a future model for a particular location where it might be 100% online with educators who don't directly know the students. But right now, in all our countries, it's local educators working with local students. And that is also a strength because it allows those relationships to develop. The relationships are already established. The educators know the communities. They understand the challenges. They know what these students have been through. They've often been through those same challenges themselves. They're in the same difficult circumstances. And that's another real strength that we have.
Well, thank you, Dr. Lesley. As you mentioned, Chris, teachers and educators are core to the success and sustainability. And that's why when we established, I would say, what constitutes the digital school, pedagogical model, because, when we trying to build what is digital school, although we have several countries, several designs, we all aligned it to our pedagogical model, and part of that was educators. Now, the training with ASU was central for us. We made sure that educators feel proud about this. That's why, the association with the big brand is also important. It's part of the change that we are trying to adopt. In some countries, for example, there were celebrations once they get the certificate, those community educators, because they have a degree that is done by Arizona State University. And actually, it's kind of increased their hope and remove the barriers, because I remember visiting one of the community schools in Egypt and asking the kids, what are your hopes? And they are saying, well, I want to be an engineer and I will take a degree from US. I'm telling him, from US? He said, yes, my teacher got a degree from US, so I can. And keep in mind, those kids in community schools, their maximum level is grade 6, because after grade 6, there are limited schools in their surrounding, and 50% maybe they will drop out. So you can see how impact we are driving through this. Another 2 points maybe related to educators and the training program is that we expanded. We built our program. It was limited only to the digital school locations and the educators from the community there. The content was, 4 languages. And the question then came when we were discussing with our partners at ASU, why we are limiting it to only locations within digital school? Why we don't open it up to the whole world, especially there is big appetite and high interest in digital education and training educators. And that's why we developed and refined our program to be more, wide, global, open, and we repackaged it as Digital Educators Global Academy, which was announced last year. And the aim was to train 10,000 educators globally on the set of skills and program that we developed with ASU. And we already started to, even if we don't have an implementation in that country or a full program there, we can start by only training educators. And all you need is, because of the technology, because it's digital, give me their accounts, their emails, and create their, and I will enroll them in the next batch. So this is a key thing. The second point is how we maintain those educators, how we involve them and continue their development journey. And that's why first we are developing, and Dr. Lesley can add into that, we have level 0, which is the basics, then level 1, then level 2, and they pass the level, the digital educator. But we added level 3 and 4, which is specializations. A digital educator now, what is next for them? They can specialize in curating content. They can specialize in other areas, which we already built. Level 3 and level 4 is in the way. The third part is related to community of practice. It's an important element which we are looking on in this period to develop our community of practitioners. What this community can do in the future, like Dr. Lesley said, we can utilize those educators to help students, maybe from the same country, but students in another location. We already started, the core trainers who already went through our training, they are preparing and helping other teachers in other locations or new locations that we are expanding to. So this community of practice within the country or across countries can do a lot of things, including helping us in training and mentoring and be trainers, because we have a track for trainers within the ASU program. The other part is to help us curate digital lesson plans and digital content, which we are calling Content Hub. How we can use this community to create Content Hub for national content, also more importantly for skilling and enrichment program, because this is also very important thing that we are trying to build into our programs and offering. A student can be in grade 5 or grade 10. At the same time, he can take a couple of courses and get some micro credentials that will hopefully allow him maybe create his own job.
Okay, I'm hearing the word "we" a lot, and I'm sure people who are listening are wondering how they might get involved in becoming part of the "we." We have many educational technology professors who use our audio recordings for their classes, and they're training instructional designers. They're training future educators. They're training evaluators and assessment specialists. I'm kind of wondering how many people are involved in the digital school and what types of occupations there are: instructional designers, teachers, evaluators, assessors, and program managers, content developers, all that. Can you give us a sense of the numbers of the scale that's involved here? Any of the three of you?
Well, as a team, we is a key element for us. We ensured whatever we do is collaborative. Day one, the digital school, when it was launched, the day that we launched the digital school, we launched also the Alliance for the Future of Digital Education. This is from a strong belief that we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We want to collaborate. The advisory council with Professor Chris with us, we make sure to keep them always updated, not keep them busy, but always we consult with them, give their feedback, give their inputs. And as a team, it is growing very fast, but at the same time, we capitalized on third parties and partners to curate content. ASU was our core partner for training and educators, training and development program, and they have their specialties and expertise who are driving all the kind of expert areas within content, within professional development program. In terms of content curation, back then we had we still have our two partners for content curation. At the same time, Dr. Lesley and her team leading the pedagogical framework that we designed and how each of the implementation partners take care of that. We have a group of volunteers from different countries that also taking part in the content curation and lesson plans development with different roles in terms of the plan, the do, the check, the quality assurance, and we kind of carefully selected those volunteers or I would say, part-time workers with us that will help in every country development. So it is central to us in terms of we have 30 plus organizations working with us, from academic, governments, nonprofits, tech companies. So this is kind of, I hope I answered your question, and maybe Dr. Lesley can add more into the educational part.
Lesley, make it short so I can ask a follow-up question. We're running out of time. Go ahead.
Okay, yes, just very briefly. I mean, we really welcome, we don't have specific roles that we're seeking assistance with, but we welcome people who are passionate, share the mission, to contact us. And often we do need volunteers, particularly around content curation, people who speak the languages of the digital school. And often it's the people who come to us who have the ideas. I can help in this way. It might be a connection in a particular country that we're working in that helps us to develop a new partnership. So I would welcome, I would invite people who want to get involved to contact us and just, discuss their ideas. How do they think they can get involved? Often our best help has come through initiatives, not from us, but through the volunteers themselves.
So Lesley, you mentioned earlier, you have, the human side, the human stories are very important to you. Could any of the three of you share a short story of a student success, a testimonial from one of the students that you impacted? Do any come to mind that, you might want from any country that you're working with? Hate to put you all on the spot here at the end of the show.
No, I can certainly share. I was just hesitating because I didn't want to jump in front of Dr. Waleed, Dr. Fuzan. Part of our NIESC accreditation visit earlier this year, they visited us in Dubai in the central office, where we have a very small core team, but we also zoomed them into our classrooms in Lebanon and in Egypt. And when they come again next spring, we'll zoom them into more of our locations. And they interviewed educators, they interviewed the local team that implements on our behalf or with us in partnership, and they interviewed students. And they commented that, those interviews with students were some of the highlights of the actual accreditation visit. We have students, I can't think of one specific, but we have several students where they've had several years out of education. I do think of a specific, a girl who's a refugee, a Syrian refugee. She's currently in the Lebanese refugee camp where we operate. And she was a very high level student. She wanted to be a doctor. She wanted to go to university. She was on track for that. And then suddenly, literally probably within a couple of days or even overnight, that dream has gone. She's left her home. She's in another country. Dr. Waleed mentioned these students often don't even have an ID number, so they're not even part of the official system. And her education has been disrupted. When digital school comes on board with them, they might have had 2 years or 18 months of no education or very limited education. And I think when we hear testimonials from those students, it's, you've given us our hope back. Digital school allows them to see a future again. It builds their resilience. It builds digital skills that they didn't even know they had. They've built a new language. The children in Lebanon are working in English, even though they're Arabic speaking. They're Syrian Arabic speakers, but they were assigned to an English speaking camp. And so their education and the curriculum they're assigned to is in English. It's the Lebanese curriculum, but it's in English. And so we give them, they tell us, you give us hope, you motivate us again. We feel back on track and that we have somewhere to go. Yeah. And I think, that's very powerful, obviously.
Yeah, well, thanks for sharing that story. I'm sure every meeting like that is real enriching and inspirational. It's been a pleasure having the three of you on today. I know Young and Chris want to say a final thank you as well, and then I'll introduce the next show. Chris or Young?
Well, thank you. That was just wonderful. It's great to hear this. I hope it goes forward like this, and just thanks for doing this.
And I want to thank you as well. It's been a terrific show. As always, we run out of time. I'd just like to say that part of the reason that your success is so amazing is that you are very systemic about how you think about this issue. You recognize that education is a complex, multidimensional system, and you're thinking about all of those dimensions and manipulating all of those dimensions. And that's what it takes. That's what it takes to succeed. Kurt, you want to talk about next week?
Yes, we have a different time for next week. Guest is coming from Paris and has just had a child and needs to attend to the child. So she's asked that we could have the at 2:30 in the afternoon Eastern, which is 8:30 p.m. in Paris. It's a WISE Award winner. It's called Nat Tekalam, and I'm pronouncing that correctly, which hires refugees and displaced people to teach languages, to tutor, to translate, and do cultural exchanges. The head of that program, Eileen Sarah, will be with us next week to tell us what that's all about. She's originally from Syria, I believe, so many of the refugees they work with are from Syria. This is going to connect real well to today's show.